യം ശൈവാഃ സമുപാസതേ ശിവ ഇതി ബ്രഹ്മേതി വേദാന്തിനോ ബൗദ്ധാ ബുദ്ധ ഇതി പ്രമാണപടവഃ കർത്തേതി നൈയായികാഃ അർഹന്നിത്യഥ ജൈനശാസനരതാഃ കർമ്മേതി മീമാംസകാഃ സോയം വോ വിദധാതു വാഞ്ചിതഫലം ത്രൈലോക്യനാഥോ ഹരിഃ. സോയം വോ വിദധാതു വാഞ്ചിതഫലം ത്രൈലോക്യനാഥോ ഹരിഃ. Harihi. Om Tas. All of us together will now recite the auspicious monosyllable Omkara in a congregational manner, combining all our voices. I would like every one of you in this assembly to have a special and deliberate thought, a sankalpa, a creative thought. What is that? Let the sound emanating from this holy, great Satrashala, Naimisharanyam, not merely permeate this holy land of God, raised from the sea by Lord Parashurama, yugas earlier, not only permeating the subcontinent of India, it should also go further and further, galloping and spreading in the whole universe. And we propose to generate and instill a very auspicious influence in the minds of the people and the other creatures. Let the world be a better world. Let there be sufficient value enrichment in the minds of the individual on the one hand, the family members on the other, the social segments, various segments, finally the nation as well as the globe. This kind of a creative thought is possible only for the human and his mind. Generally, God is said to have created the entire material and energial universe, not borrowing matter from anybody else. There was nothing like matter or energy to begin with. Some indescribable and ineffable presence alone was there. That presence is very much impersonal. And from that presence, by virtue of the creative thought, the entire materiality and the material universe emerge. The same creative thought and the potential are sufficiently ingrained in the human personality and that personality alone. Let us use that creative thought and wish the entire universe an auspicious turn of events. Let there be more and more peace and beatitude everywhere in the globe. Close your eyes, interlock your fingers, put them on your lap, sit comfortably erect, and open your mouth as well as the heart, and join me in reciting this Omkara 3 times. Don't make it necessary for me to say that the collective sound is not fully representative of the assembly here. Every one of you should join, and with a full throat and a full heart. Harihi, Harihi. As usual, not at all ample, adequate and sufficient. You have to join in larger number and in a greater depth and loftiness. Harihi. Harihi Om Tats. Jai Guru. I thought I would speak to you, expose the subject of Srimad Bhagavatam, its devotional and spiritual excellence. Srimad Bhagavata is the supreme authority on the subject of devotion. The subject of devotion necessarily includes devotion as a subject, a kind of a pursuit or a practice or a sadhana. It also means and implies the devotee who practices the devotional sadhana. So it is an effort on the part of the seeker of truth or the lover of God. He takes up the practice of devotion and goes on with the practice. If it is an effort or a practice or a sadhana, it must have a goal, a definite goal to achieve. So that also will be discussed here. What is devotion? Where does it inhere? What is the purpose or object of devotion? When will the devotee feel that he is a devotee? And how and when he is going to fulfill his devotional pursuit? And what are the final outcomes of the devotional fulfillment? Is it something where deliberateness on the part of the practitioner comes into play? Can anybody and all practice devotion? If so, how? You tell us very clearly what is devotion and how it has to be practiced. It has to be interpreted as well as related to the human individual, the different levels of activity that he has. Our activity externally studied will be sensory activity. Activities based upon and enabled by resting upon our senses. We have two sets of senses. One set is called the knowledge senses, the jnanendriyas as we described them. Eyes, ear, nose, tongue and skin. These constitute the jnanendriyas. Then we also have for functions and activities karmendriyas, the action organs. What are they? Primarily the hands, then come the legs. There are procreational organ and other things, evacuation, etc. Now these karmendriyas and jnanendriyas constitute our external personality. In fact, our body itself is one on which these 10 sensory organs are situated, are fixed. The purpose of the body is only that. It also hosts something called the brain. When we say intellect or intelligence, we don't mean the brain. The brain is a part of the human body, like hands and legs. But when we refer to intelligence, we are not referring so much to the brain as such. Mind or mentation is a function. That function cannot be identified with, ascribed to any form of matter or energy at all. No form of matter or energy in the whole world is found to be capable of thinking, feeling, sensing, remembering, responding, etc. These are feelings and capacities which the human mind alone has. And intelligence is another factor, another faculty. In reality, the refined mind itself is the intellect. So it does rational inquiry, rational study, arrives at inferences, assessments, conclusions, etc. Then we also have something called the ego to coordinate these multiple functions, the sensory functions as well as the other functions. These are the three inner constituents of the human personality. In Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna speaks about, he provides an analysis of the entire creation. He says, the entire Prakriti, broad nature, the complex nature, consists of altogether 8 factors. The 5 are outside perceptible or sensible to the senses. They are the Panchabhutas, the solid earth, the fluid water, the gaseous air, the different forms of energy represented by fire, and ultimately the space, the ground for all the other 4. Now these exhaust the entire gamut of the external visible creation, the matter energy elements of the whole creation, universe. There are 3 more. They are only within the body of man. You cannot trace mind anywhere outside at all. In a human personality, when it is living, you will be able to access by virtue of its symptoms and lakshanas it produces externally, the existence and the function of the mind. Similarly, the intelligence and the ego. So the entire creation consists of these 8. 5 are outside and 3 are within. Are you listening to me? See, the entire creation is traced to these 8, and 5 are outside and 3 are within. The outside elements are inert and insentient. So they don't have any capacity to create anything in any particular way. They are acted upon by some other conscious agents ultimately. The 3 creative factors or constituents are within our body. You must understand what is the potential, the place and the importance and also the possibility of the human personality then. Think about it very seriously. We are not great for our body, for our senses. In reality, there are a number of animals in this world whose sensory organs are far superior to what we the human beings have. So our capacity and our greatness, if at all, consist only in the inner constituents, namely the mind on the one hand, intelligence and the ego. That is why man is considered great. Now, whenever we are discussing about devotion, this devotion should be a pursuit taken up by the human personality. In taking it up, what is the place of the senses and the sensory interactions? What is the place of the oral activity, articulation? And what is the place for the mind, the intelligence and the ego? All these are clearly discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is a science. It's a scientific discussion on the subject of devotion, devotee, dispassion, spiritual wisdom, realization of God and fulfillment and liberation. All these subjects are covered by it. It contains 18,000 Sanskrit verses. So you can understand more than 1,00,000 of words are there. And all of them do not just speak about devotion, devotion, devotion. All the pages are not written by the 2-letter word devotion. A number of subjects are discussed there. Just imagine, it's a great treatise. In terms of historic record, people have come to the conclusion that the present Srimad Bhagavatam which we have before us was written about 1400 years ago or back. It was written somewhere in the South India when the Alvar community and their devotional sages had an ascendancy, so to say, in the cultural climate, the cultural history of India. 1400 years back, Srimad Bhagavatam was written. But the content and the message of Srimad Bhagavatam was there far, far earlier. There are people who hold that Srimad Bhagavatam itself is an expanded version of Vishnu Purana. We have a number of Puranas with us. 18 Puranas and 18 Upapuranas. Srimad Bhagavata is not included as one of them. It is called by 2 different words. One is a Mahapurana, because we have got some standards and styles for writing and composing Mahapurana. A number of subjects should be covered there in a sequential manner. It is true that Srimad Bhagavatam is a Mahapurana because it discusses all the subjects presented by and discussed by the Mahapurana. But Srimad Bhagavata is not just that. It is specifically called as the Paramahamsya Samhita. Paramahamsya Samhita. Say that. Samhita is a compendium. There will be a fundamental or an ultimate note of discussion there. But you will find this fundamental discussion is related to a number of allied thoughts and processes, customs, manners, ways, culture and other factors. All of them are connected to it. It is something like a huge river which has got a number of tributaries. Tributaries are there, but all of them join the main stream. And the river becomes more and more huge and huge, deeper and deeper, and wider, broader and broader. Similarly, Srimad Bhagavata is a torrential flow consisting of a number of tributaries, you can say. But it contains what? Water and the flow of water. So there is a fundamental note of discussion there. That is clearly mentioned in the opening statements themselves in Srimad Bhagavatam. It is called a Paramahamsya Samhita, I said, compendium. What is meant by Paramahamsya? The word Hamsa refers to the individual soul. The human individual is called a Hamsa. Hamsa means swan. What is the special capacity of swan? If you mix up water and milk together, say take a liter of water and mix it up with take 1 liter of milk and mix it up with 5 liters of water and give the 6 liters to swan. The swan will not grumble or frown at you. It will simply suck the milk and give you back the water. It is something very, very difficult to do. We cannot imagine even. Now, the human soul is considered to be a swan because we must develop the art and the process of discrimination. Try to observe the world, experience the world, understand the world, use your intelligence, rationally go into the characteristics of the world, the nature of the world, understand that these are all perishable and evanescent. Everything is subject to various kinds of attacks, assailments and miseries. So nothing in this world is static, everything is perishable. How can the whole perishable world remain by itself? It is not possible at all. There must be something of an imperishable character. If A changes into B, now the next change in B will be brought about by whom? So there must be a kind of a substratum which is imperishable. If you are able to understand that the whole world, including your body, is perishable, but it is underscored by something imperishable, and that is what you call by the term I. I is a reference everyone makes. Only when the I is there, you can be there. He, she, it and they can be there. The first personal pronoun is the first item of experience in a human being at any point of time. Everything arises from the I. If the I were not there, even the world would not have been there as a matter of experience. So this I, we are using constantly whether we know it or not. Right from the beginning, when we started saying I and referring to ourselves as that, till the last breath the I continues to be changeless. Except this I factor, in the whole universe you will never find anything changeless at all. Everything is changeful. Our earth is changing. The sun is changing. I always say that there will come a time when the sun will have become cold. You and I may not be there physically. There is a certain liquid which is undergoing transformation in the sun, generating heat and brilliance, matter getting converted into energy. After some time the source material will have been exhausted and the sun will become virtually cold. So much is the change taking place in the whole universe. Now all these changes are enabled and empowered only because there is a substratum which has infinite potential, which is capable of preserving this perishable world in its own perishable and sequential character. If you are able to distinguish the two and ultimately locate, the imperishable is not outside, it is accessible within me. It is the one I refer to as I, so I cannot doubt it. It is really within my body. It is neither the body, nor the mind, nor the intelligence, nor the ego. All these are referred to by me as mine, but not the I. Only when the I is there, the mine or the my can be there. One is the possessive case, another is the nominative case. If I were not there, mine will not be there at all. I refer to the world as the world I see. The world will not be seen by me unless the seer I is first there. For seeing the world, I should be there. For me to be there, the world need not be there. Every one of us goes into sleep, unaware of the body, unaware of the world, unaware of anything at all. But nevertheless we wake up to say, I slept comfortably. Though nothing else was there, I was there. So the I never ceases to exist any time during the course of our life or experience. So that I is imperishable. I might have been a boy bodily. I might have become youthful. Maybe I grow, I will become old. One day, seemingly my body may die also. But I don't have an experience of either my birth, or nor will I have an experience of death. All that I know is I am, I exist, I am, I exist. I existed yesterday in the past. I exist now in the present. I will continue to exist later also. So in all the three periods of time, the I does not undergo any shrinkage, alteration, scar or otherwise. There are so many occasions when I became miserable mentally, I became doubtful and assailed intellectually. I have survived all these things, and the I seems to be shining in its own splendor, glory, intrinsic greatness. This is the imperishable. This is the imperishable. Compared to that, everything in this world is perishable. Even the so-called alleged heaven, hell, this loka, that loka, everything is perishable. If the imperishable is within me, let me turn my direction to that imperishable. I will not be interested so much in this fanfare for the world, about the world. This kind of a discrimination is characteristic of the human mind, of the human personality. If you are able to pursue it consistently, it leads you to the stage and realization of immortality, where you realize the I, the imperishable I within you. He who has done so is called Paramahamsa. All the others are Aparahamsas. Then the life becomes superior, life becomes great, life becomes meaningful, it becomes fulfilled. Now, this is a Samhita, a compendium written by a Paramahamsa, Vedavyasa by name. It was exposed by Shuka, another younger Paramahamsa, Paramahamsa squared. And it was narrated to Parikshit, a great king who happened to commit a heinous crime. And as a compensation for it, he decided to starve until death. Only 7 days were available for him. After listening to the narration from Shukamuni, the writing of Paramahamsa, he also became a Paramahamsa before Takshaka came, administered its bite, and in the poison and the fire that arose therefrom, his body was completely charred, burnt into ashes. Before that, Parikshit had realized his Paramahamsatva, and he had got dissolved into his own within. This is the story discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam. It is not just a devotional text. It is devotional, no doubt. Much more so, it is philosophical, it is spiritual, it is yogic, and all the religious elements also are there. In India, the great spiritual culture began from religious invocations, religious adorations, addressed by the Rigvedic sages. They were looking into the high sky and trying to praise the superhuman powers. So it started from the religious hymns, but it did not end up with the religious thoughts. Ultimately, they reached at their own inner level, and questioning and investigation started, as a result of which they were able to find and realize and experience the supreme reality, the Antaratma. So it is not just devotional. What is the subject that Srimad Bhagavatam discusses, if you ask me? In the first verse itself, its greatness is clearly indicated. Janmadyasya yatonvayaditaradah chartheshvabhijnaswarat Janmadyasya yatonvayaditaradah. Listen to me very carefully. Janma adi asya. Asya means of this universe. Janma adi. Everything about the emergence of the universe. How the universe, Panchabhautik universe, emerged. From where? What is the source material? What are the potentials of the source? We are finding here matter in various levels. Solid matter, fluid matter, gaseous matter, different forms of energy. All these evolved from air. From where? The whole matter could not have been evolved from another matter. Then the question will be that source matter and the effect outcome matter, both of them were they evolving? So the matter could not have evolved from matter. Energy could not have evolved from energy. Matter-energy combination could not have been evolved from another combination. So there must be a source. Srimad Bhagavata speaks about it. Janma adi asya. And the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam is Satyam Param Dhimahi. Satyam Param Dhimahi. Say that. Not sufficient at all. All of you. Satyam param dhimahi. Dhimahi means I contemplate upon. What? Satyam. What kind of a Satyam? The supreme reality. With the eyes we see the world, the perishable objects. With the ear also we are listening to perishable sounds. The imperishable is something different. They are not available to, accessible to the senses. If at all they are within our body, and the inner agencies and inner instruments will have to be employed. So the supreme reality called religiously God, that God has to be contemplated upon. And when you contemplate upon Him, He becomes the supreme reality or truth. This is the subject discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam. While discussing the subject, Srimad Bhagavata is very much aware of the complex nature of human life and the various challenges, persecutions, assailments, assaults, attacks from the perishable world. So it has to tell you what is the procedure to be adopted. What is the methodology to govern your life? Is there anything called discipline, refinement? Are there any norms, standards, styles? All these things, they go by the name dharma. What is it that should govern our life? Our life should be governed by a number of do's and don'ts. All of them arise from the sense of dharma. The word dharma is so beautiful that it does not have an English equivalent. Dharma is defined in this manner. Dharana dharma ityahuhu dharmo dharayati prajaha. All the beings in this world will be sustained by the power and potential of dharma. Power and potential of dharma. It is the power of sustenance. Draupadi was assailed in an open assembly, and 5 of her husbands, they stood helpless. Even Bhishma said, I acknowledge your question, I cannot give an answer. There was pandemonium there. There was a terrible and stunning suspense. And the situation lingered for hours and hours with no answer at all. And this poor lady being dragged by Dushasana by the hair. But she did not yield at all. You may maximum touch my body and hair, but my mind is independent and sovereign. It cannot be touched by, assailed by you. I don't accept my slavery in your hands. I am sovereign. I am independent. I am supreme. I am splendorous, she said. Where from did she get this power of sustenance? So there is something called the power of sustenance. Even when the visible world is deserting you, you will find there is something invisible. The entire visible world has come from an invisible source. So when the visible world fails to protect you, do not lose your heart. Dasharatha was not helped by 3 of his queens. Though Kausalya had delivered Shanta earlier, no son was delivered by all the 3 queens. Then he called Vasishtadeva and said, I am not going to lose my heart at all. I am going to perform Ashwamedha Yaga, the greatest of religious sacrifice, and I will submit my prayer. Though my bodies have not come to my rescue, I expect that my soul will come. What do you say? Vasishtha complimented him and presided over the entire ceremony. It was performed, and from the payasam, that pudding which was offered there as a part of the whole ceremony, it was distributed to 3 women, and instead of 3 children, they had 4 beautiful brothers. My dear souls, never lose your heart in this world. You may have faith in your married partner, in your parents, in your brothers, in your sisters, in your neighbors. All of them are perishable, understand. If you can pin your faith in these perishable objects and relationships, wow, how much should be the faith that you are able to muster and place in the supremely invisible source and the power of sustenance of everything. The sustenance is there. Either you understand it and place your reliance on it, or you have faith in it and resort to it. So Dasharatha succeeded. Everywhere you will find when the visible world fails, the invisible world or the invisible hands extend beautiful and timely rescue. Understand it. So that kind of a dharma is explained. The dharma of the individual, the dharma of the family, the dharma of the society and social segment, ultimately the dharma of rulers and administration, the dharma pertaining to the environment. What should be our attitude towards nature as a whole? You know, we are going to plant 27 seedlings here. One of them will be the Ashwatha tree, the people tree. Another will be the banyan tree. And these 27 plants, they are identified and ascribed to whom? 27 constellations on the sky. These constellations can be clearly known by us. I can point to you what are some of the constellations, though I don't know all of them. There are traditional descriptions. It's not a single star or a single shining element. It's a cluster of things. That is why I describe them as constellations. Every tree is identified with it. What do you think of our culture then? What do you think of the cultural depth, the thought process that undergoes, that has preceded the evolution of such a great and a beautiful culture? So let us be very, very clear about it. Very, very clear about it. So there is dharma pertaining to nature. How should you use this earth? How should you handle this air? How should you think about the water? Never putrefy them, never pollute them. Preserve them in their pristine manner as much as possible. I sometimes refer to the story. A young couple came from America to our ashram. They had a tall boy. He was asked to prostrate before your Swamiji. And the manner in which this boy came forward and prostrated, I found that there was a lack of development in him. After I spent some time, I asked them about the situation and finally said, what do you have to say? Why there are so many children getting born? He said that they were not identified earlier. Now we are able to identify because of medical facilities and advancement. He said, no, Swamiji. Previously it was only this brain retardation was only 1 in 1,000. Now it has become 1 in 100. What a great difference. Now you are in America. America is noted for research. Do they have anything to say about the research program in this matter? He said, yes. It's all due to chemical pollution, he said. Chemical pollution. Polluting the earth chemically. Polluting the water chemically. Polluting the air chemically. All the advancements we have made in the so-called industrial civilization, scientific and technological advancement that we have, all of them have spoiled this earth. Global warming, it has reached such a dangerous level. At the end of this century, I am told that it is going to be a threatening state of affairs. Threatening. About 2.5 degrees Celsius will be the total increase by the end of this century. Normally it should be 0.5 or so. So we will have driven this earth to a kind of a precipitous level. We won't be able to know what. Maybe our body will start picking up blisters because of the global warming. Of all the creatures, small and big, in the whole world, this notorious human alone will be able to pollute and spoil the earth and the environments. No animal will do, no bird will do, no reptile will do. We crooked human beings alone, not being able to understand what is the prime duty of our intelligence. Our civilization has to be sustainable. Sustainable. The word is very recently people started speaking about it. You cannot live in any manner you like. You have to live in a manner that life will be possible on this planet for endless number of centuries. You have to bequeath to every next generation a better earth, at least the same earth. We cannot give a depleted earth. We cannot give a polluted earth. We cannot give a polluted ocean, a polluted river, a polluted air. Are you conscious of this? In the so-called rat race rat race that we are having, we are unmindful of the dangers lurking behind our seemingly skillful intellectual discoveries and inventions. So dharma is discussed in a threadbare manner. Dharma projhita kaidavotra paramo. I am discussing it with a supreme delight and a supreme sense of fulfillment. The dharma concerning the human society and the environments, opening it up without any shyness. Whenever occasions I will say, this is the hollow nature of the parents, this is the hollow nature of conjugal life, everything is misdirected, everything is misconceived, everything is ill done. Without any shame or reluctance I am explaining this dharma. And in the whole of Srimad Bhagavatam, what do you have to understand? Vedyam vastavamatra vastu shivadam. Vedyam. In the Srimad Bhagavata, you have to know, read every letter, every word, every verse, every presentation, every discussion, every analysis. You have to read and understand. Understand finally what? Vastavamatra vastu shivadam. The supreme truth called Vastava. Why discussing Vastava? The entire world is avastava. Avastava means untrue. Why do you call the entire world and your own body avastava? The truth will never perish. It will never change. Look into the world and tell me whether the world is changing or changeless. The changingness is not a characteristic or lakshana of truth. So I am discussing and revealing to you Vastavam here. Why Shivadam? Only from Vastava you will be able to feel the so-called joy, unadulterated joy, perennial joy, especially the auspiciousness that you are looking for, that you can get only from the Vastava, not from the Avastava, the perishable, the untrue world. That is why we are discussing. And by knowing this Shivada truth, what is the benefit? Tabhatrayon Moolanam. Tabhatrayon Moolanam. It will alleviate all the three kinds of misery which the world is constantly inflicting upon the human mind. One is called the spiritual and the adhyatmic suffering. Another is called the Adhi Bhaudik suffering and the Adhi Deivik suffering. These three sufferings are bound to be in this world. Everyone, a human being living in this world, is subject to the threefold misery inflicted by the world. By knowing the supreme truth alone, you will be able to overcome. Parikshit was inflicted by the misery of impending death at the end of 7 days. He understood the truth beforehand, and before the fateful Takshaka came and beat him, Parikshit had already got his redemption from it. Are you following me? Are you able to understand? This is India, my dear souls. This is India. Takshaka will bite me and I will No. Srimad Bhagavata is a mighty weapon which conquers and subdues and overcomes death. Before Takshaka could kill, Parikshit was not there at all. Takshaka came and bit his body. Others say, Parikshit was not there to know it. So it gives you, if not external redemption, sensory redemption, it will instill you and bestow upon you inner and spiritual redemption. Our mind is superior to the body. The intelligence is superior to the mind. And you will find the soul, the I, is the most superior in the human personality. We are not slaves to the world. We are masters to the world. The world is our servant. Live here with your personal mastery, which is derived, which is an outcome of the right knowledge of truth that you will have. Nothing short of it. Knowledge is superior to us. Not wealth, not power, not position, not external things, not gold, not silver. Knowledge. the properties and possessions, the inner mind, the inner intelligence, the inner ego, all of them can possess as well as cherish. That is what we want. In the language of religion and devotion, what does Srimad Bhagavata say? Sadyo hridya varudhyadetra kridibhihi shushrushubistakshanad Ishvaraha, the Lord. India is a religious country. India is a devotional nation. Our society is predominantly devotional, predominantly religious. How many thousands and thousands of temples are there? 3 crores of people every year walk the Himalayan heights to visit Chaturdhama. Nowadays they go with the young babies, newborn babies even. They visit the Chaturdhamas, Gangotri, Yamunotri, Badrinath and Kedarnath. That is why we have brought sacred earth from there. Most of you may not be able to go there, but you should at least see that the earth is presented before you. See it and have the fulfillment. Similarly to Shabarimalai, 3 crores of people come from the other states. What do you think of it? It is that religious, cultural majesty, magnificence and profundity of India. We are living like other nations and other people in this world. But we know very clearly that our body is perishable and everything in this world is equally perishable. The real glory, the real salvation, the real fulfillment is not external and gross. It is psycho-intellectual. It is spiritual. It is hidden within our body. We are available here only for a very short period like 80 or 90 years now. It's not a long period compared to the endless time. All people born in this world have died. The dead people always will be far outnumbering the living people. And we are also going to DIE. Why are you afraid to say? We are also going to say that. Die. Everybody has died. We cannot escape. Suppose we don't die, our children may curse us. Arey, he is living 95, 90, 100 years. Who will look after them? I have got grandchildren and their children. This person also is living. So don't wait for that. Let us understand. This is the only short period that we are living here. Any number of external and gross acquisitions are not going to follow you. Your body itself will be disposed of. The ring in the finger will be taken out, at least by the priest, and given to you. Nothing is going to be carried by us. If at all there is anything, it is only the inner treasure. Like Parikshit, he was unmindful of Takshaka's presence or arrival. He became glorious in his own manner. Shukamuni came and delivered the message. Soon after that, he went away. Before that, he expressed his gratitude and also obeisance to the Muni and closed his eyes. This is India, my dear souls. Our India is not living for monetary gains. Our gains are clear and safe within our body. That Lord Ishvara, Sadyo Hridya Varudhyade, Sadyo Hridi Avarudhyade. Srimad Bhagavata is going to install the Lord in your heart. We generally install idols in the temples, pictures on the wall, Saligrama and Shivalinga in our puja room. That is customary and conventional. I don't know what we get out of it. Srimad Bhagavata says, the real Lord has to be installed in your heart. You have to prepare your heart, purify it, make it noble, make it edified. Be as gentle as possible, as loving as possible, as compassionate as possible. When you grow in the qualities of the mind and qualities of the heart, automatically you will find God out of His own volition treks into your within and remains there. I will not escape from here. This is what we want. Sadyo hridya varudhyatetra kridibhihi shushrusubhistakshanad. This is how Srimad Bhagavatam proceeds. This particular verse, dharma projhita kaidavotra paramo. This is the second verse. Ending up is saying the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam, the values, the principles, the goals, the messages, the directions, the conversations, the presentations, the discussions, the analysis, etc. Srimad Bhagavata is providing consistently, has only one objective: install the Lord in your heart. Make no mistake about it. Now, I want to take you to a conversation that took place in Dwaraka between Krishna's father Vasudeva and the sage Narada. Are you interested in listening to it? Huh? So let us go to Dwaraka. Let us go to Dwaraka. Dwaraka was a special palace which Sri Krishna made in a hurry for the protection of the Mathura residents, because Jarasandha was out to assail them, attack them several times, 18 times he attacked them with 23 Akshahunis of warriors. So he decided that the usual place will not be sufficient. Let us have something within the ocean itself, surrounded by the sea. Because Krishna was living there, Narada used to visit that place. Govinda Bhujaguptayam Dwaravatyam Kurudvaha Avadsin Narado Bhikshnam Krishnopasana Lalasaha. I am reading Srimad Bhagavata. When I read them, it is so beautiful, so tasty, so delicious, so sumptuous. Govinda Bhujaguptayam Dwaravatyam Kurudvaha Avadsin Narado Bhikshnam Krishnopasana Lalasaha. Narada, a very lofty sage, with his veena, he was always singing the glory of Lord Hari. Nothing else he found to be interesting. Wherever he went with his articulation, the beautiful praises on Lord Hari, the very rare and ecstatic hymns he was singing melodiously. Knowing that Sri Krishna was residing in Dwaraka, he used to frequent that place. What is the reason? Krishnopasana lalasaha. Let me have at least the sight of Krishna. If possible, let me try to serve him a little bit. I am normally singing the praises of Lord Hari. Here is Lord Hari in a physical human form. So I would like to be a little close and proximate to him. Thinking in this manner he used to come. Konurajan indriyavan mukunda charanam bhujam na bhajet sarvado mrityuhu upahasyam amarottamaihi. Bhagavan bhavato yatra swastaye sarvadehinam kripananam yatha pitror uttama vartmanam. Narada used to go there frequently, I said. Only when Krishna was there, he used to go. And sometimes he used to go for an evening walk in Dwaraka. So one day when he was going, Vasudeva happened to meet him. When Vasudeva met Narada, suddenly he started speaking, accosting Narada Maharshi. And he says, Bhagavan bhavato yatra swastaye sarvadehinam kripananam yatha pitroho uttama vatmanam bhutanam devacharitam dukkhaya cha sukhaya cha sukhayaiva hi sadhunam twadrisham achyutatmanam bhajanti ye yatha devan deva api tathaivadan chayeva karma sajivaha sadhavo dinavatsalah. See, you should read these things. That reading itself is a sweet exercise. Without any sweetmeat before you, you can enjoy the delicacy of sweetness. So he says, people like you, lofty sages, who have installed Lord in your heart, who have nothing else to do except singing the grandeur and the grace of the Supreme Lord, having a vision, looking at you, having a sight of you, swastaye sarvadehinam, it is showering benedictions and blessings on all beings. Kripananam yatha putro yatha pitro uttama shloka vartmanam. See, when in a poor home, the father has gone away for employment and he comes after 1 or 2 years of life, the children will be so much expecting. Our father will bring some kind of sweet delicacy, etc. and the arrival will be anxiously looked for by the children. Exactly in the same manner we are looking to have a darshan of all people like you, he says. And he makes an observation. Bhutanam devacharitam dukkhaya cha sukhaya cha sukhayaiva hi sadhunam twadrisham achyudatmanam. Why? We are given to praises, adorations, puja, puraskara, etc. A number of gods and goddesses are there. 33 crores of gods and goddesses are there in the Hindu pantheon. So when so many of them are there, what is there special about a human saint like Narada? Vasudeva himself says, who is this Vasudeva? Krishna's father, mind you. So it carries a special authority and a value, an imprint. Bhutanam devacharitam dukkhaya cha sukhaya cha sukhayaiva hi sadhunam twadrisham achyudatmanam. Our gods and goddesses also have got a history, and that history is not always sweet. We are speaking about Indra. This Indra is the most jealous person that the world ever knows. Wherever anybody is going to do austerity, Mr. Indra will reach there, send a few damsels as emissaries to spoil. A man is doing austerity. Why should Indra pick it up? This Indra is a damage maker. So don't think that the history of gods and goddesses is always something pleasant and wholesomely so. Sukhayaiva hi sadhunam twadrisham achyudatmanam. All these devas, when praised, they are happy. When not praised, they are unhappy. When praised, they will say good. When unpraised, they will say bad. So be very careful. Sukhayaiva hi sadhunam. The worship of devas promotes or brings about both misery as well as happiness. On the other hand, sukhayaiva hi sadhunam. People like you, lofty sages, who only know to sing the praises of Lord the Supreme. From them we get only joy, happiness and contentment. We are never afraid of any possible curse from them. What about the situation of the devas? Bhajandiye yatha devan, deva api tathaivatan, chayeva karma sajivaha, sadhavo deenavatsalaha. This is a very great analysis and evaluation. Bhajandiye yatha devan, deva api tathaivatan. If you worship the devas, you have worshipped me, Siddhant, I will give you everything. And suppose you don't worship, you have not worshipped them. They don't have a uniform attitude. They will give you everything when pleased and worshipped. Can you worship them always? Don't we have other duties and tasks to perform? Is there anybody who can be only immersed in devotion for all the 24 hours? It is not possible. So these people are, when they are pleased, they will be pleased with you. When you are not able to do anything to please them, then, and he gives a beautiful example. Chayeva karma sajivaha. They are like shadows of human beings. You stand on the sun or in front of light, you lift your hand, the shadow will lift the hand. You pull it down, that will also pull down. So the pleasure of the devas depends upon your pleasing them. They are not independently pleased about you. It's all reciprocal. These reciprocally behaving gods, they are dangerous, Baba. On the other hand, people like you, sadhavo deenavatsala, you have a habitual and a consistent and an unbroken compassion to all people. You are far more dependable than the so-called gods and goddesses. With this introduction he says, Brahmam stadha vipruchamo dharman bhagavadam stava yan shrutva shraddhaya martyo muchyate sarvato bhayad. Aham kila puranandam prajartho bhuvi muktidam abhujayam namokshaya mohito devamayaya. My dear sage, I have a confession to make before you. I have a confession to make. I have been carrying this guilt for decades and decades in my life. Krishna is my son. Everything is okay. But I don't deserve to be Krishna's father. What is it that I did? Aham kila puranantam prajartho bhuvi muktidam. I worshipped the Supreme Lord Hari, Mahavishnu. I worshipped him. He came before me, stood as a Chaturbhujadhari with a smiling face and told me, what is it that you want, my dear devotee? I am pleased with you. I made a mistake, Narada. I am sorry for it. Prajartho bhuvi muktidam. He was ready to pronounce mukti for me. Nitya sukha for me. Incessant, unending, happiness, contentment, ecstasy, fulfillment. He was ready to shower. But I told him, no, I want you to be born as my child, my son. Are you understanding? Huh? Vasudeva tells us, never make a specific prayer before any god. Go there, praise him, worship him. Go waving your hand, come back waving your hand. Never think of teaching him. Never making any specific submission or prayer. Abhujayam namokshaya mohito devamayaya. I said, be born as my son. Not caring to think, can I parent the child if God were to be born to me? No such consideration was there. The Lord was a little unpleased, but nevertheless he never said anything. He went away and he was born. You know what he said? I am going to be born to you as the 8th child to kill your brother-in-law. These are conditions which Vasudeva had not safeguarded against. He only asked for, be born to me. Yes, I was born to you. And after getting born, what did he do? Take me to Vrindavan. Bring back the girl. I will never grow under you. Only the birth took place. And that too in the most persecuted manner. Both Vasudeva and Devaki were chained. They were in a prison. They were not able to meet each other and talk to each other even. In such a situation, the child was born. And in a matter of minutes, Vasudeva was asked to carry the child on his head. Take it into Vrindavan and bring back a girl. This is my story. What shall I tell you? My son Krishna is distributing liberation, making crores and crores of people happy and ecstatic everywhere. Though he is my son, I am not able to sit before him and ask for any spiritual instruction by virtue of which my mind will be redeemed, my intelligence will be clarified, and I will have the joy of fulfillment. That is not possible. This is the suffering that I am suffering. Please somehow instruct me so that I will be liberated from this situation. Narada was immensely pleased. He said, Rajanevam krita prashno vasudevena dhimata pridhastamaha devarshihi harehe samsmarido gunaihi. The moment such a question was asked, Narada was very happy. So he says, how can you redeem me from this suffering which was brought about by my own misbehavior, lack of insight, lack of discrimination? I started giving instruction to the Lord when He was ready to bless me with anything. Please give me anything of your choice. Like Prahlada said, I don't want anything, my dear Lord. I want you and you alone. My dear souls, will you ever say, wherever you pray before the Lord, my dear Lord, be pleased with me and give me anything that you like. My heart is empty. I have no condition to stipulate. I have no prayer to make. I have nothing to say. You are externally and internally present. My senses are motivated by you. My mind is persuaded and instigated by you. My intelligence is illumined by you. You are everywhere. Don't ask me what I want. Please decide it yourself. What is the harm if you say like this? You will go to the temple and give a big list My family consists of 7 members. The birth star of each of it is there. And I give you 10 rupees each. And this 10 rupee archana should give me a lifelong insurance of blessings. Wonderful. Are we not capable of doing anything better and more? I am asking you. These shastras are there only to enlighten you. Narada was immensely pleased and he says, I immediately feel reminded of a story. What is that story? A conversation between King Nimi and the 9 yogis, he says. 9 yogis. Nimi Chakravarti was performing a great sacrifice. While the sacrifice was on, suddenly appeared there a set of 9 yogis. 9 yogis. He instantly stopped the sacrifice, received them, made them sit, washed their hands, gave him water and other drinks, and thereafter he submitted a prayer. Please be seated and graceful enough. The entire sacrifice was stopped. When the Maharaja sat in their front, all the Ritviks and the preceptors came also, took their seat. When a Mahatma comes to a holy occasion or even a holy sacrifice, understand, the Mahatma is to be given precedence and not your mantras and blazing fire. Will it speak? The blazing fire, will it speak to you? Why no answer? Will it hear you? Will it see you? Whereas the Mahatma, you can speak whatever you want before him. See, Nimi Chakravarti asked him. What did he ask? Please tell me about the Bhagavata dharmas, the supreme dharmas, by virtue of which the Lord will be pleased and he will give his own Atma Samrajya to the devotee. His own kingdom he will give to the devotee. Tell me such characteristics, such lakshanas, such disciplines and virtues and embellishments of the devotee. Then he goes on saying, Archayam eva haraye pujam yashraddhaye hate nadad bhakteshu janyeshu sabhaktaha pragrita smritaha. There are 3 levels of devotion. One is called the uncultured devotion, where an idol is kept as a representative of God, and the devotee is very particular that he should worship the idol and idol alone. Suppose a flower falls anywhere else, he will pick it up. Iska arth kya hai? What is the meaning? Because the God whom I worship is only in the idol. Then where is God? Who is here? And who is everywhere? And who is inside? Archayam eva haraye. The worship for the supreme all-pervading Lord is offered only in the idol. Na tad bhakteshu janyeshu. When the devotees come, they don't care at all. It is the devotees who will enlighten you about God, take you faster towards the abode of God. But they have no consideration for them. I and my idol, I and my idol. None of you, keep away, I don't want. I am sufficient with my God. This is the kind of feeling, constriction they have. Still they are worshipping, so they are a worshipper. So I say, it is devotion all right, but uncultured devotion. Sabhaktaha pragrita smritaha. That is that pragrita devotion. What is the second level? Ishvare tadadhineshu balisheshu dvishassuja prema maitri kripopeksha yah karodi samadhyama. The second level of devotion consists in not any physical offer, physical idol or anything. After all, mind is the fulcrum, mind is the real source of everything. All activities proceed from the mind, subsist upon the mind, conclude and terminate in the mind also. So in the mind you install your devotion by 4 parallel and complementary attitudes. What are they? Ishvare prema maitri. Towards Lord only have love, fondness. Nothing else. My dear God, I love you most. You are my beloved. Maybe I have my parents, I have my married partner, I have my children. Everybody is there. But of all the things, you are the most beloved to me. That belovedness towards the Lord, it is in the form of an attitude, a sentiment, an emotion, a mind's upsurge. That alone God requires. Not your big pudding, chatushatam. You offer all these materials and what do? Does he take? Why are you keeping quiet? And then you distribute it to the others. भगवान को क्या मिला है? कुछ नहीं मिलता है. भगवान तुम्हारी भोजन के लिए भूखी भी नहीं. Are you giving him every time? No. You give him when you want. Suppose he has hunger, who will feed him regularly? You will feed your children regularly, but not God. Are you unhappy with my words? Huh? Suniye na. Listen to this very carefully. Prema maitri kripopeksha. You must have an attitude of friendliness, friendship towards the devotees of the Lord. Take interest in them. They may be non-possessors, they will not have a job, they will not have a personal income, but they may do many things. So be close to them, inquire after their welfare, do whatever you can to help them in their activities for their maintenance, looking after their body. And listen to them. Whenever you are in distress, go to them and ask them. Go to them and ask them. Just like Nimi Chakravarti is asking. So a kind of a dialogue can take place, a sharing can take place only with the devotees. Suppose you offer pudding to the Lord, does he take it? Why are you keeping quiet? Does the idol take any day? Suppose he starts taking, nobody will give also. So prema maitri, kripopeksha. About your devotion, many people may scorn you, ridicule you. Simply ignore it. Have compassion and sympathy towards them who criticize devotion, who say this is all nonsense, false, etc. Simply have sympathy for them. And then there are some people who will dislike you and may be unfriendly and inimical to you. Such people do de-recognize and do upeksha. These are the 4 attitudes you should install in your mind and pursue it, promote it, cherish it and preserve. Prema maitri kripopeksha yah karodi samadhyamaha. Now this attitudinal devotion, the 4-fold attitudinal devotion is the second stage. Then what is the highest stage is the question. Here is the answer. What is the highest stage? Listen to it very carefully. Will you? Or are you tired? Will you listen to what I say? Visrajati hridayam nayasya sakshat hariravashabhihitopyagau ganashah pranayarashanaya dhritangri padmaha sabhavati bhagavata pradhana uktaha. Visrajati hridayam nayasya sakshat hariravashabhihitopyagau ganashah pranayarashanaya dhritangri padmaha sabhavati bhagavata pradhana uktaha. That person, that devotee is considered to be the most excellent of all devotees in this world. Whose heart the Lord is not able to leave even for a second fraction of that. I told you in the second verse, Bhagavata tells you how to install the Lord in your heart permanently. He explains the way. Visrajati hridayam nayasya sakshat hariravashabhihitopyagau ganashah. Hari, who is the destroyer of all forms of sin and impurity, he will not be able to leave your heart. Why? Pranayarashanaya dhritangri padmaha. By the cord of love, you have bound his feet firmly. Don't bind him anywhere as in the hip, which Yashoda did. So, he walked comfortably. You should tie him in the feet, both the feet together. And what is the method? Make a cord. Don't go to the market and buy. Pranayarashanaya, pranayarashanaya. Say that word. All of you. Pranayarasanaya, Pranayarasanaya, Pranayarasanaya. Rasana means rope or cord. So love, it cannot be bought from the market. It has to be generated from your own heart. And you make it in the form of a cord. Tie firmly his feet. The great God will remain in your heart. He will not be able to go at all. Such a devotee, Sabhavati Bhagavata Pradhana Uktaha. Of all the devotees, the most sublime, the most resplendent, the most fulfilled, the most adorable and exemplary devotee, he is. Now you tell me, what difficulty is there for you in tying the feet of the Lord? Do you consider that you are sinful? I am sinful, Swamiji. I cannot think of tying. When I read it, I was so happy. Is this what Srimad Bhagavatam, the supreme authority on devotion, exhorts people to do? I was wondering. This is the culture of India. God is not a source of fear for us. He is not a source of doubt for us. He is a source for employing our fondness towards. Be fond of Him. Fond of Him. Fond of Him. Don't you have a heart? Do you have a heart? Yes. Is it capable of loving? Yes. Then love the Lord. And make that love a cord. നിങ്ങളുടെ മനസ്സിൽ തോന്നുന്ന സ്നേഹത്തെ ഒരു കയറാക്കി തീർത്ത് ആ സ്നേഹ കയറുകൊണ്ട് മഹാവിഷ്ണുവിന്റെ പാദങ്ങൾ വരിഞ്ഞു മുറുക്കി അങ്ങോട്ട് കെട്ടിക്കഴിഞ്ഞ് നിങ്ങളുടെ ഹൃദയം വിട്ടു പോകാൻ പറ്റാതെ ആവണം മഹാവിഷ്ണുവിന്. അങ്ങനെ മഹാവിഷ്ണുവിനെ ഹൃദയത്തിൽ സ്നേഹ കയറുകൊണ്ട് കെട്ടാൻ സാധിക്കുന്ന ഭക്തനാണ് ഏറ്റവും ഉത്തമനും ആരാധ്യനുമായിരിക്കുന്ന വിഷ്ണുഭക്തൻ എന്നാണ് ശ്രീമദ് ഭാഗവതം പ്രഖ്യാപിക്കുന്നത്. കൂട്ടരെ ഒന്ന് മനസ്സിലാക്കൂ. This is why I captioned the day's talk as devotional and spiritual excellence of Srimad Bhagavatam. ഇതിലധികം നിങ്ങൾക്ക് എന്താ വേണ്ടത്? What greater or more do you want? You are able to firmly install the Lord in your heart by making a rope of your devotional fondness and using it discreetly to tie the feet of the Lord, as a result of which you don't have to do anything. He is incapable of getting away from your heart. This is how we understand God. We interpret God. We explain devotion. We practice it. We pursue it. We perfect it. And we have the full reward and rewarding benediction. Have you understood the message? Huh? Have you understood the message? Yes. How many people? Acha, very good. Now I will conclude the session. Jayati Jayati Devo Devaki Nandanoyam Jayati Jayati Krishno Vrishnivaṁsha Pradipaha Jayati Jayati Meghashyamalah Komalango Jayati Jayati Prithvi Bharanasho Mukundaha. Harihi Om, Harihi Om. All of us together, എല്ലാവരും കൂടി ഓങ്കാരം ജപിക്കുക. Interlock your fingers and as you did earlier, do now also and join me. Harihi Om, Harihi Om.